When my son-in-law threw that old duffel bag at my feet and told me to take my junk and get out of his sight, I thought my life was over. I was standing on the front porch of the house I had built with my own 2 hands, 43 years ago, holding nothing but a torn canvas bag, watching my daughter cry behind a glass door she refused to open. But when I unzipped that bag later that night in a cheap motel off Route 9, I found $820,000 in bundled hundreds and a handwritten letter that made my hand shake so hard I had to set it down. And when I walked back through my own front door 2 weeks later, what I saw waiting for me in that living room brought me to my knees. My name is Walter Dunham. I'm 67 years old, a retired carpenter from Millbrook, Ohio, and what happened to me this past spring is something I never thought could happen in a family like mine. I'd been told my whole life that blood is thicker than water, that family protects family, that when you raise a child right, they'll stand by you in your old age. I believed that. I built my whole life around that belief. And then in one single afternoon, I watched it turn to ash in front of me. But before I tell you what was inside that bag and what I found when I came home, let me ask you something. Have you ever trusted someone so completely that you couldn't even imagine them betraying you, only to find out they'd been planning your downfall for years? Stay with me, because what my own flesh and blood tried to do to me is going to make your stomach turn. And what happened when I finally fought back is something you need to hear. It started on a Tuesday in April, the kind of gray Ohio afternoon where the sky can't decide if it wants to rain or not. I was out back in my workshop, sanding down a cradle I was building for my neighbor's first grandchild, when I heard the crunch of tires on my gravel driveway. I figured it was my daughter Rebecca stopping by, like she did most Tuesdays, usually with a tin of her mother's old lemon cookies she'd started baking after my Eleanor passed 4 years back. Eleanor used to say Rebecca had her hands, but my stubbornness, God, I miss that woman every day. I stepped out of the workshop wiping sawdust off my flannel, and sure enough, there was Rebecca's blue Camry. But she wasn't alone. My son-in-law Devin was with her, and a man I didn't recognize in a sharp black suit carrying a leather folder. That folder gave me a bad feeling right away. In my experience, nothing good ever comes out of a folder like that. Rebecca wouldn't meet my eyes. That was the first thing I noticed. My own daughter, the little girl who used to ride on my shoulders through the county fair, couldn't look at her old man. Devin, though, he was smiling like a used car salesman, walking up to me with his hand out. "Walt," he said, shaking my hand too hard, "we need to have a family talk. Why don't we go inside?" I didn't like the way he said family. Devin had married Rebecca 11 years ago, and in all that time he'd called me Walt, maybe 3 times. It was always Sir or Mr. Dunham. Something had shifted, and I could feel it in my bones the way I could feel a thunderstorm coming in my bad knee. We sat around my kitchen table, the one I'd built from reclaimed barn wood the summer after Rebecca was born. The man in the suit introduced himself as Harold Preston, an attorney. He set his folder down and started sliding papers across the table at me. "Mr. Dunham," he said, "your daughter and son-in-law have retained me to help facilitate a family property transfer. Given your age and recent medical history, they feel it's in everyone's best interest that ownership of this home be restructured." I stared at him. I looked at Rebecca. She was picking at a spot on the tablecloth. I looked at Devin, who had that same oily smile plastered on his face. "What medical history?" I asked, because the last time I'd been to a doctor was for a tetanus shot after I cut my thumb on a rusted nail 2 years ago. Devin cleared his throat. "Walt, come on now. We've all noticed how you've been slipping, forgetting things, Rebecca's been real worried. We just want to protect you and protect the family assets before something happens." "Slipping?" I said. "What have I forgotten?" "Dad, please," Rebecca finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Let's just do this. It'll be easier." The lawyer kept pushing papers at me. A power of attorney. A quitclaim deed, transferring the house to Rebecca and Devon jointly. A document naming Devon as my financial guardian. I didn't touch any of them. I just sat there looking at the daughter I had raised, trying to understand what was happening in my own kitchen. "Rebecca," I said softly. "Honey, look at me." She wouldn't. "I'm going to need you all to leave," I said. "I'm not signing anything today." That's when Devon's mask dropped. His smile flattened into something cold and ugly. He stood up so fast the chair scraped loud against the floor. "You don't get it, old man. This is happening whether you sign or not. We've already got a doctor ready to write an evaluation. You fight us, you're going to end up in a state home eating applesauce for every meal. Sign the damn papers." I looked at my daughter then, and for just a second she looked up at me. And in her eyes, I didn't see the woman I thought she'd become. I saw something I couldn't read. Fear, maybe. Or shame. Or something else entirely that I wouldn't understand until much later. They left without the paper signed. But 3 weeks later, I got a letter from a doctor I'd never met, diagnosing me with early-stage cognitive decline. 2 weeks after that, there was a petition for guardianship filed in Muskingum County Court. And 4 weeks after that, on a Friday morning in late May, while I was at the hardware store buying wood screws, Devon and Rebecca changed the locks on my front door. I came home to find my belongings piled in black garbage bags on the front lawn. My tools. My photographs of Eleanor. My Army discharge papers. 43 years of a life shoved into plastic sacks like I was trash being taken to the curb. Devon was standing there when I pulled up. Rebecca was on the porch, her arms wrapped around herself, crying silently. A sheriff's deputy stood off to the side, looking uncomfortable. "Court order, Walt," Devon said, holding up a paper. "Temporary guardianship. You're not allowed on the property until the full hearing." I got out of my truck on shaking legs. "This is my house. I built this house. Not anymore it isn't. Take your junk and get out of here before I have the deputy arrest you for trespassing." That's when Rebecca moved. She grabbed one of the garbage bags, the old canvas duffel I used to take to construction sites back in the 70s, and she marched it down the porch steps. Her face was streaked with tears. She threw it at my feet with more force than I'd ever seen from her. "Take your trash, Dad," she screamed, and her voice broke on the word. "Just take it and go." But as she turned to run back to the porch, she looked at me, really looked at me, and for just an instant her eyes flicked down to the duffel bag at my feet, and then back up to mine, and I saw something I hadn't seen in her eyes in years. I saw my little girl. I didn't understand it then. I picked up my bags. I loaded them into the bed of my truck while the deputy watched with pity in his eyes. And I drove away from the house I had built, not knowing where I was going, with my daughter's screams still ringing in my ears. I ended up at the Sleepy Pine Motel off Route 9, a place with faded curtains and a television that only got 4 channels. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time just staring at the carpet. I was 67 years old, homeless, branded mentally incompetent by a court, and my only child had helped do it to me. It was almost midnight when I finally started going through the bags, trying to figure out what they'd let me keep. Most of it was junk. Old clothes, kitchen stuff. They hadn't let me take my tools. But when I unzipped that old canvas duffel, the one Rebecca had thrown at my feet, my heart stopped. Inside, beneath a layer of old work shirts, there were stacks of cash. $100 bills, banded together in $10,000 bundles. I counted them with trembling hands. 82 bundles. $820,000. My life savings, the money I'd kept in the small safe in my basement workshop, money Rebecca and Devin shouldn't have even known existed. And tucked between two of the bundles, there was a letter in Rebecca's handwriting. "Daddy," it began, "if you're reading this, I got the bag to you. I'm so sorry. Please don't hate me. Devin doesn't know about the money. I moved it from the safe 3 days ago. He thinks he's going to find your savings when he searches the house tomorrow. I've been gathering evidence on him for 8 months. I couldn't tell you, because if he sensed anything, he would have moved faster. He was going to have you committed to Cedar Ridge Memory Care next week, Daddy. I saw the paperwork. He was going to lock you away where we couldn't help you. I had to let him think he won. I had to act like I was with him. Please, please trust me for just a little longer. Go to Thomas Whitaker. He knows everything. Don't come back to the house until he calls you. I love you, Daddy. I've always loved you. Please forgive me." I sat on that motel bed and cried in a way I hadn't cried since Eleanor's funeral. Not from sadness, from shame. I had doubted my little girl. Even for a moment I had doubted her, and she had been fighting for me in the dark, alone, for 8 months. Thomas Whitaker was a name I hadn't heard in 30 years. He'd been a young lawyer in town back when I'd helped build his father's lake house. I'd saved him from a nasty fall off a roof when he was a teenager helping his dad. The next morning, I drove to his office in Zanesville, and when his secretary saw me walk in, she stood up without a word and buzzed me straight through. Thomas was older now, silver hair, glasses on a chain around his neck. He stood up when I walked in and came around his desk and hugged me like a son hugging a father. "Mr. Dunham," he said, "I've been waiting for this day for 8 months. Your daughter is one of the bravest people I have ever represented." He had a whole file cabinet dedicated to my case. Rebecca had been secretly meeting with him since last September. She had recordings, financial records. She'd hired a private investigator out of Columbus who had built a case on Devin that was going to bury him alive. Because here's what I didn't know. Here's what my daughter had been piecing together while pretending to her husband that she was on his side. Devin had embezzled $400,000 from the construction firm where he worked as a project manager. He'd been forging invoices for 3 years. He was about to get caught, and he needed to disappear the money into real estate. My house, worth close to $1 million on the current market, was the perfect laundering vehicle. His plan was to sell it within 6 months of getting guardianship, move the money into his name through a series of shell companies Rebecca had discovered files for on his laptop, and then divorce her and take off. He'd already bought a condo in Sarasota under a fake name. My daughter had photographs of the deed. And the doctor who diagnosed me with cognitive decline, he was Devin's college roommate's brother. He'd never examined me. He'd written the evaluation from photographs. Rebecca had recorded a conversation 3 months ago in our kitchen where Devin, drunk on bourbon, laughed about how easy it was going to be to put the old bastard in a home and pocket everything. She'd recorded 4 other conversations. She had bank records. She had the fake doctor's text messages with Devin, which she'd gotten when Devin left his phone unlocked at Thanksgiving dinner, and she'd quietly forwarded everything to herself. My daughter wasn't weak. My daughter was a wolf in sheep's clothing, and she had spent the better part of a year preparing to tear Devin limb from limb. She'd just needed him to make his move first, publicly and legally, so there would be no way for him to wriggle out. Thomas called in a favor with a federal judge he'd known since law school. Within 3 days, the guardianship petition was suspended pending investigation. Within a week, the FBI had opened a formal inquiry into Devon's embezzlement. Within 2 weeks, I walked back up the steps of my own house with a court order in one hand and my attorney beside me. Rebecca opened the door before I could knock. She collapsed into my arms and sobbed. 41 years old, and she cried into my shoulder like she was 8 years old and had skinned her knee. I held her and I told her over and over again that I loved her, that I was so proud of her, that she was the bravest person I had ever known. My little girl, my Rebecca, and sitting behind her in the living room in handcuffs, surrounded by 2 federal agents and a local sheriff, was Devon. The look on his face when he realized what had happened is something I will remember until the day I die. He had thought he was so clever. He had thought he was going to steal my house, steal my savings, and throw away my daughter like garbage. He had thought he was the smartest man in the room. He'd been outfoxed by a carpenter's daughter who learned her patience from her mother, and her stubbornness from her old man. The trial lasted 6 weeks. Devon was charged with embezzlement, wire fraud, elder abuse, conspiracy to defraud, filing fraudulent medical documentation, and a half-dozen other things I can't even pronounce. The fake doctor lost his license and got 4 years for his role in the scheme. Devon got 22 years in federal prison. His condo in Sarasota was seized. Every cent he had stolen was returned. He'll be in his 70s when he gets out, sitting in some halfway house eating whatever they give him, and I promise you he's going to remember our family every single day of it. Rebecca filed for divorce the same week Devon was arraigned. She moved back into her old bedroom while we sorted everything out. She cooked me dinner every night for a month, the 2 of us eating at that kitchen table I'd built, talking about Eleanor and old times and the future. One evening in June, she asked me if I could ever really forgive her for not telling me what was happening, for letting me think, even for one night, that she had turned against me. I took her hand in mine, these old carpenter's hands that had held hers the day she was born, and I told her the truth. I told her that any man who needs forgiving from his child is a man who hasn't been paying attention, that she had not hurt me, that she had saved me at enormous risk to herself, and that I could never, ever repay that. I told her that her mother would have been so proud, and then I told her something I should have told her years ago. I told her that when you love someone, real love, grown-up love, sometimes the deepest kindness looks like coldness from the outside. Sometimes protecting someone means letting them think you've abandoned them. Sometimes the only way to save a life is to pretend you don't care about it. And I told her that I had spent my whole life thinking I was the strong one in our family, thinking I was the protector. But I had been wrong. My little girl had become the protector, and I had never been prouder of anything in my life than I was of her. That was 8 months ago. Rebecca lives with me now, in the house she saved. She's gone back to school to become a paralegal, working in Thomas Whitaker's office part-time while she studies. She wants to help other elderly people who were being targeted by family members, because she learned during our case that what Devon tried to do to me happens to thousands of seniors every year in this country. Thousands. Most of them have no Rebecca to save them. I've started speaking at senior centers around Ohio, telling our story, trying to warn people about what to watch for. The fake doctors, the pushy in-laws, the sudden concerns about your mental fitness, the papers that appear out of nowhere. If what happened to me ever happens to you, I want you to know 2 things. First, you are not alone. Second, fight back. Find yourself a Thomas Whitaker. The law is on your side if you have the courage to use it, And if I can leave you with one last thing before I let you go, it's this. Don't ever mistake kindness for weakness. And don't ever mistake a quiet person for a harmless one. My daughter smiled at her husband for 8 months and fed him at our dinner table and sat beside him in bed at night, all while she was quietly gathering the nails she was going to use to seal his coffin. The gentle ones, the patient ones, the ones who choose love over anger. They are not weak. They are the most dangerous people on this earth when someone they love is threatened. I am an old man. I have lived 67 years. I have lost a wife I adored. I have buried both my parents. I have watched friends go to Vietnam and never come back. I thought I understood what love was. I thought I understood what family meant. I was wrong. I didn't truly know. Not all the way down to the bottom of it, until my daughter threw an old duffel bag at my feet and screamed for me to take my trash and go. She was fighting for me with the only weapon she had left, which was the appearance of betrayal, and she won. So tonight, if you're watching this and you've got an old mama or daddy somewhere you haven't called in a while, pick up the phone. And if you're a senior like me and you feel something is off in your family, trust that feeling. Write things down. Make copies of your documents. Put your money somewhere only you know about. And find one person, just one person outside your immediate family, that you would trust with your life, because the wolves don't always come from the woods. Sometimes they come from your own kitchen table. Thank you for sitting with me tonight, friend. God bless you, and God bless the quiet ones fighting for the people they love. They are the reason this world still has any goodness left in it.